Hi, Michael.
Hi, Josh.
Welcome back.
Joshua Gandy, the man.
If you haven't heard our episode before, Michael was one of my very first interviews. I was still calling people on my phone then. I was still figuring out what the show was then. I didn't really know what it was. I just knew that I was in a spot where I hadn't met a lot of people that were sober. So anybody that came into my life was exciting. And you're somebody that's really stuck with me since our first chat. In that first episode, you were 14 months sober. You were working as a whiskey brand ambassador. And I think we were both just kind of trying to figure out what the hell was going on. It was lockdown times when we chatted. So, the earth felt a little shattered. I don't know that that part has changed much, but I think the way that we approach it has changed. I'm excited to have you back on, and I'm more so excited just to have you in my life. You're somebody you're charming, you are stylish, you are fun, you are kind and hospitable. And it's rare, especially within this industry. Like, I know sometimes people have to yuck it up, but really, whenever I see you, we kind of pick up where we last left off and we have meaningful conversations. And when you ask me how I am, I give you a true answer. I don't glaze over something just to move on to whatever the next talking point might be, because you're somebody that actually listens and you're able to repeat back to me things that we've said in the past, which are somewhat rare qualities for the industry that we're in. So I want to thank you for that. And that being said, I want my first question. It's a simple question, but I want you to answer it as if I don't have a follow up for it. And my question is, how are you?
Right now, I'm a little emotional with that intro that you just laid out. I'm legitimately teared up a little bit because I'm great, man. Given everything that's going on in the world and how crazy it is, I really am living in this state of gratitude for the things that I have and the awareness to be aware of the things that I have. And just thinking about as you're talking, in our initial conversation when we first met, really, and started this friendship, I was thinking about the countless hugs that it's led to every time I see you. And for those that don't know, Josh is a very good hugger. And so it's just like, in becoming that genuine connection that started out of really kind of us both trying to find our way in this space, living in the hospitality world and F&B, but also as sober people. And this is almost 7 years ago now. So this is not as prevalent as it is today. So how I am right now is grateful and really grounded, I think, in my life and happy. So I'm wonderful, man. I am. I'm really, really good. How are you?
Well, I am a father since we last recorded that first episode, which is huge. It's something I didn't think was possible, you know, at that
Yeah.
before I made this decision to remove alcohol. I was my dad died at 39, not alcohol related, but heart related. And his dad died at 40. So, a lot of my early life was, I'm not going to be around that long. So a lot of my thinking wasn't even about family or future. So to be able to make that decision when I did, and now thinking about what I have, like, I too am grateful for what's around, because it's something that, I contributed to and I built.
It's great, man. I love it.
So
And
I
you
want
look
to hear a
great
little.
after having a child. I mean, you look rested and, you look so good.
Yeah, especially since he's two. And there's no shortage of excitement. So where I want to catch up a little bit is, as I mentioned in the beginning, you were repping a whiskey brand when we first met. And then we had a second conversation that was more focused on just kind of like brand ambassadorship and the ways that, you can be supported or not supported in that role. And since then, you're now working with the Pathfinder, which is one of my favorite, if not my favorite, NA brand that's available right now. What I'd love to hear from you is, what was the transition like into that role, and how does repping non-alcoholic vary from alcoholic? Because the Pathfinder parties that I've been to they're still parties. It's sober, not somber, which I appreciate about you guys.
I mean, look, I was fortunate enough to cross paths with this brand when they launched. I was working with another non-alcoholic brand for a short amount of time and met Craig Ravinsky, who was our former global brand ambassador in Seattle at his bar where it actually launched. So as a sober person, it was my favorite thing to drink too, right? It was the one thing I could have neat or on rocks, and it like made me feel like I was still having something to drink, which was really incredible. And then, my wife and I had a brief stint out of New York. We spent about 9 months in LA. Just life kind of got us out that way. And so I was bartending using Pathfinder, my bar programs out there. And then when I came back to New York, not to go too far down this, but I was in a non-compete. So I was locked out of the NA space for 2 years from the previous employer not letting me out. It had worked out the way that life often does when you kind of just let it guide you. My non-compete expired the month that we got distribution in New York.
Wow.
And so it was just like Craig knew that we were gonna fill this role with a brand ambassador type of position in New York, but we needed to wait for distribution because trying to do this without that is really, really difficult. So it really worked out. But I would also say it afforded me the time in this I was home for about a year before that happened, and I was back behind the bar at Dante part-time and doing some other stuff, and it afforded me the time to really figure out if I wanted to do it. Because I was coming, my wife and there was this really tumultuous time in our life where we were left New York, went to Washington, it didn't work out, landed in LA, hated it, came back to New York, and so there was so much going on. And Craig and I sat down about 6 months before the job, and I said, I don't know that I want it, honestly. And I was like, and I don't want you to hold it for me, right? Because we were friends at that point, and he really wanted me to do it. And I was like, I just don't know that it's where I'm at in my life anymore. And so that really did give me the time to kind of figure it out. And then by the time it came open, I was all in and really wanted to be a part of building this brand and helping to continue to drive this, sober space and help grow it. And it just made the most sense. And so once they identified that it was an open position, Craig really pushed for me within our company to have me come on and be a part of it. And since then, it's been incredible. We started as brand ambassadors. We've structured the company in a way to help us grow as effectively as possible. And now I run the East Coast for us, and I'm over 20 something states and really learning a lot, truthfully, from a distribution management standpoint and supply chain and like all the things I didn't know. I'm learning on the job, which is really incredible. Not only am I growing this brand and growing in the space, but I'm also growing professionally in the role, which is really, really great. So it's been awesome.
What happens when you bring it to a spot? Because I feel like it's one thing to introduce a new brand if it's of, something that's recognizable. You could say, I've got this new whiskey. For the most part, folks know what whiskey is. But walking in with the Pathfinder, who are you explaining this to? How is it received? What comes of it?
Yeah, I will explain it to anyone that will listen. So it doesn't matter who it is. But look, I've made this joke a lot over the last 2 years now that I've been with them. It's the easiest thing I've sold in my life. Like it truthfully is. Like you just get people to taste it and they understand what it is and they get it. And so whether it's a consumer event or whether it's trade focused, it doesn't take a lot for people to understand it. And then I'm also really fortunate that, one of our founders is Stephen Grass, and he was the guy behind, the Hendrix and Sailor Jerry's and, Monkey 47 and these incredible brands. So our branding really does kind of set the tone. Before you've even tasted it, you're already tasting it. Do you know what I mean? Like you see the bottle, you kind of have an idea what you're in for, and then the liquid delivers. So I think that also makes it really easy. And then I also think because we are this NA brand that we're just riding this line, right? We're riding this space of like Nana to us doesn't necessarily mean sober. We're just giving you a choice on how you want to enjoy our product. And so being able to mix with alcohol and having that be part of our program and part of our platform as well really does allow us access to a consumer base that maybe wouldn't necessarily pay attention. And so that's been a ton of fun too, to like see light bulbs turn on at these tasting events where we do whiskey festivals where we show up and consumers they're like, why are you here? I'm like, bring me your whiskey. Let's make an old fashioned with Pathfinder. And they're like, and it blows their mind. Right. And so like we sell to anyone and everyone. And I fully believe that if there are spirits being poured anywhere, Pathfinder belongs in that space.
How does it feel to you personally to be able to be a sober person and, rep such a great NA product?
It's empowering. I think it makes me, there's never been a day in the 2 years that and the ups and downs that come with this job that I've wondered if I'm in the right place. Do you know what I mean? Like I felt like this when I worked for Woodford too, right? Like at that time I couldn't leave Woodford and go work for another brand. It's another spirit, really, because it just wasn't authentic to me, right? Definitely not another whiskey, but me repping gin would not make sense. And I feel the same way about Pathfinder in this space, right? I can't imagine if anything were to ever happen and I wasn't with Pathfinder that I wouldn't do another brand. Like it authentically feels like I am Pathfinder and Pathfinder is me. And that I think is also super special, and part of why I'm living in gratitude is that I work for this brand that I feel so attached to and so authentically that I don't have to. Part of why I think the job is so great.
How are you talking about your sobriety now versus when we first chatted? You were 14 months in at that point.
Yeah, I guess I don't remember how I talked about it 14 months in because that's so long ago. I feel like, the stigma behind it isn't as severe is not the right word, but it's not as jarring, right? It's not as surprising to tell people you're not drinking as it was back then. I think I'm probably a little gentler about it with people and a little bit less, I want to say demonstrative in the sense of like speaking of like 2 weeks is a win. A day is a win. Like I think I've had a lot of people in my life coming in and out of my life over the last 7 years, 6.5 years that have asked for help or guidance or like, how did you do it? Whatever. And I think my messaging has changed in the sense of like, do what's best for you and just do the next right thing. And if you stumbled, it's okay. And like, I just think there's just so many people are so afraid to start because they think forever from the moment they make the decision, right? Versus like, I didn't think that when I started. I just thought I was going to stop while I was here, but I was still going to drink on vacations and I was still going to, set all these rules. So like, if I would have thought forever from the beginning, I don't know that I would have made it. And so I think my message now is probably to be easy on yourself. You know where you need to go and like trust that you're going to make the right decisions. And then, don't ever be afraid to reach out for help if you need it. For me personally, it's not really a thought anymore. Like I don't identify myself as a sober person. Like I don't really use my platform too often for it. I'll speak more on my experiences in hospitality and how we're being treated in the world more than I will like my day-to-day struggles or wins. Because truthfully, I tell people this more than anything else now. Like my sobriety keeps me sober in a way that I don't think about it, right? I just am so aware of the things that I have and how my wife and my friends and my life and my family, like I'm unwilling to lose that. And so I just don't even think about it anymore. It's just part of my life.
Yeah, it's truly a transformation because I'm with you. Like for a long time, it was something that I had to actively think about all the time. And it wasn't, necessarily that a bottle wasn't calling to me like a green goblin mask, but it was just like I didn't know fully how to talk about it yet. And even in my messaging, and, I'm with you. I felt like in the very beginning, because it was so new and fresh to me, I was like, everybody should do this. Like they should do exactly what I did because then they'll get to feel that I do. Like there's got to be like no other way. And I think now my messaging is more of like, just pay attention. Like that's that's the biggest thing because I had taken months off and it was for the sake of taking months off and then just getting right back into it because I didn't pay attention. I didn't pay attention to how I felt or how I looked or how I acted or, the fact that I remembered what people were saying to me, like little details about people's lives. Like all those little things I was just kind of like pushing under the rug and not paying attention to. But for that final one that really it took because I paid attention in that moment. I was like, oh, this really could be something for me. And while I was doing that, I was still doing the same thing that you were mentioning. It was just like, yeah, I'm sober now, but holidays are going to come up. And then little by little, those things start passing. And now like years are passing. And I don't think it feels like a filter that I have to step through anymore. It was almost like any decision making that I had to have. I was like, well, how would Josh, the sober person, approach this? Like I had to like check in with myself in that way where now it's just like now I feel like I'm just living a life and I happen to be sober and it isn't always the first thing that I think about. I think that's pretty refreshing.
Yeah, it's funny. So, yes to all that, right? If some people are like, well, I'm getting ready to take a vacation in 2 weeks. Like, well, you can take 2 weeks off and then go on vacation and have a great time and then come back and start again. Or like maybe on vacation it'll change. I also feel like I've said this for a long time, and I'm pretty sure I probably even said this on the podcast that we've recorded, right? I've always said that like I want whiskey every day. And I understand that I want whiskey every day. And knowing that I can't have it, like it takes kind of the power away that acknowledging that it's in the room with me. And I don't know that that's true anymore. I don't. I think we've had bottles in our house for a long time, and there's just no pull to them. There's never a thought when shit gets hard, when life gets weird, or I'm having a tough day. Like I have never. I can't remember the last time I was like, oh, I need a drink. Because there's even times where like I don't even want non-alc drinks. Oh, I
Yeah.
actually don't. I have a case of NA beer in my fridge. It's been there for a long time. Like I just make a soda water or something, or like I just I just think my whole behavior around it has changed in a way that I just don't it's just not something I think about very much anymore at all, which is pretty wild. So, it's
How would you
interesting.
describe the difference between getting sober and staying sober?
I think anybody can get sober. I think anybody can say I'm done, right? We've all said that. Staying sober is rough, right? And in the beginning, I think specifically, and I guess that here's how I think I would equate it. I've never thought about this, so this is a great question. So I'm going to do my best here on the fly. Do you remember when you decided to be in this space, to be in hospitality, be in F&B, and you had to be a bar back to start? Or a server or a busser or whatever that was, whatever that job was that you had to do. And you knew, I don't want to do this forever, but I have to do this to get where I want to go. And that's what I think getting sober is. Because, like, and the way that I would really specifically lay this out for me is I grew up with alcoholic members of my family. I grew up in Al Anon rooms. I knew what AA was. I hate AA. Sorry, it's not for me, it's not my space, it's never felt authentic, but did I do a year of it when I first got sober? Did I do 90 and 90s? Yes. Did I have a sponsor? Yes. Did I work steps? Yes. Not because I wanted to, and not because it was what I wanted to do long term, but I knew that if I didn't develop a foundation of habits and connections and that network to like get me through those initial really, really hard times, like I wasn't gonna make it. And then over the last 6.5 years, my habits have shifted and my behaviors have shifted. And like I have other things in place now to keep me in the space that I need to be that aren't AA. But I had to develop that base set of tools so that I could then figure out, what was going to work for me. So I think getting sober is one thing, staying sober is another. And staying sober, I think, is where people can trip up because the work is hard. And it's, I've told the story a million times about the train platform and my wife and asking me early 3 months in why I was being a dick that day, and I didn't know because I wasn't doing the work, but I also wasn't supplementing what I was running from with alcohol, and so I was left in this weird place. And I think that's where getting sober stops and the staying sober starts, and you gotta be willing to put that in, and that's the hard part for sure.
I think that's great. What are some of the ways that you check in with your with
So pretty much every morning now, every weekday morning specifically, because there's a work day ahead, and that's where a lot of the stress comes from in our lives, right? It's what we do for a living. I have this little pocket like moleskin, and I'll write in it every morning before I open the laptop. No matter what time I wake up, no matter how anxious I'm feeling about the day or what I have to do, I'll take a couple of minutes and I'll write in there, and it will usually be playful banter with myself in the like I don't take it too seriously. It's not necessarily a journal, but it's more of just like you're feeling exhausted right now, you're feeling anxious right now. Like next week you won't even remember this morning. You know what I mean? Like it's those kinds of like maintaining some degree of perspective before I jump into the emails and what's come through on my phone overnight, right? Because we all see our phone when we wake up and all the messages. And as me as a human being, right? Red dots on a phone stress me out. I can't handle
Mhm.
the notification dots. So waking up to those things, I immediately get that first jolt. So it's things like that where it's like I don't look at my computer. I try not to look at my phone outside of maybe just a check-in. And then it's, we have a coffee machine. I've really gotten into making my own coffee and stuff. So like those little things I do to occupy myself. But I think the biggest thing is that book every morning kind of starts my day with some perspective and some gratitude of like, you know, Look at this life you have. Like, look up in this apartment you're living in, right? I mean, the me from 10 years ago that moved here could never fathom what I have now. So I think there's little check-ins like that. I think I don't think I've ever done a podcast where I don't bring up my incredible partner in this world, in this life, and Brooke, and we're really try really hard to check in every day with each other because we're both very busy, and just, even for a moment, just for a smile and a I love you and a how happy we are that we're in this together. But that little book has been a lifesaver for me on a lot of mornings when I wake up and I'm starting to stress out, and it just sets the tone for the rest of the day.
What's it like having Brooke as a support system? And what's it like being a partner to her? And I ask because, even what folks get to see on social of you guys is you're such champions of each other. You're always in full support, and you truly can see the love between you guys, and not just personally, but like within work, with the way that you're both outspoken. The way that both of you show love to yourselves and community shows up in the way that you show love to each other, which I really appreciate.
It's the single greatest thing that's ever happened to me, right? She is. And we support each other in a way that I didn't know was possible, right? And I've said this a lot. You know, there's not a single ex-girlfriend in my life that would believe that I'm who I am today for my wife, right? Because that's the person I am for her is who they wanted me to be for them, and they just weren't the right people. And it's so, I'm not going to say effortless because that's not fair, but like, I genuinely want to be there for her in every way that she needs me to be. And she's the same. And so we have lots of conversations, lots of check-ins pretty frequently, but we also do a lot of the little things. I've told some people this, but like every time one of us brushes our teeth, we paste the other one's toothbrush. Even if we know they're going to sleep for 3 more hours and they're going to have to repaste it because it gets crusty, it's just the act of doing it for one another when the other one's doing it, to let them know you're thinking about them, to let them know that they matter. And so I just have never had to wonder where she was. She's always been right beside me, and I've always been right beside her. And we're very aware of our strengths and weaknesses. We're fortunate that we balance each other out. When one of us is caving in, the other one's usually not. So we're able to be there for each other. And if we are both caving in, we just order a pizza and watch 90 Day and sit on the couch. Like we don't ask from each other what we know, what we can't give back, right? There's no expectation of, I need you to do all these things while I continue to not provide what you need. And I just think the easiest thing in the world to be a fan of her, because she is in the trenches with you through everything. We have a fridge full of notes from old bars and restaurants she's worked at from staff that have sent her messages, and she's inspiring in that she will outwork anyone, and she will hold herself to the same level of accountability that she holds you to. But she'll also fucking be the big spoon and let me fucking cry from time to time, which is really important. So this could be we could talk for hours about her, but I appreciate the space here to even really expand on it more than I have in the past, because I would not be who I am and where I am without her. Like we literally were at dinner last night and made a joke about curmudgeon-y, guy behind the bar that's been there for far too long. And I was like, that would have ended up being my life without you. Like I just would have been that person. So yeah, she's everything, man. She's everything.
Yeah, I think having this space to talk about that is important. As much as we work on ourselves, like the folks that stick around are just as meaningful, especially if, they fit your life in that way where they kind of become a mirror to yourself in all the best ways. How do you show up for yourself?
Man, I give myself a lot of grace. I try to anyway, right? As much as possible. It's funny. Right now, I'm showing up for myself by taking care of my health in a way that, I was coming through all the tumultuousness that we just talked about at the beginning of the show, the back and forth from coast to coast and all this uncertainty. I really did kind of get out of control. And so my addiction to alcohol was under control, but my addiction to food and sugar and a lot of other things that were unhealthy were spiraling in a way that, I needed to get under control. And so right now I'm showing up for myself in that I've recommitted to my own health and wellness and fitness in a way where I'm going to the gym multiple times a week. I'm watching what I eat. I'm trying to just feel better in my own body, because not feeling good in my own body then spiraled into a lot of other things that then bled into, just like how I viewed myself, how I thought other people saw me. I think that was really hard. And then so with that's one piece of it. And then the other side of it is like, I have hobbies that I think I've seen this a lot. I'm sure we've all seen this probably on Instagram or TikTok or somewhere, but like people talking about how we had this tendency to make our hobbies a financial thing or a side hustle because we all need to do 75 bazillion things to exist. I have really tried to stop. I started to do that, right? I created another Instagram and was doing some like fashion stuff. I'm not really active on it anymore, but I'm still doing all the same things. I'm just not I'm not putting it out into the world. I'm just kind of doing it for myself, teaching myself how to sew and how to alter and getting into like design and other things with the idea that it's preparing me for whatever comes next, right? The idea with Pathfinder is obviously we want to build this thing up and sell it. And then my plan is to move on into another facet of my life. And I think that's where I want to go. So I'm trying to find ways to allow myself to have the time to work on those things in silence and in quiet and and build those things up without trying to feel the stress of making it a persona or a thing that I have to share with everybody all the time, right? I'm still a curmudgeon elder millennial, right? So like there's a part of me that just wants to go to a cabin in the woods and have a landline and that's it. So that's where I'm trying to balance those two things right now. But that's definitely me showing up for myself to almost kind of recoil from that space and really just tighten my circle up and work on the things that make me happy and not necessarily share it with everyone. To be
And that's hard.
honest. Yeah, it's really hard because you feel the push to do it, feel like if you aren't out and you aren't doing those things, like it can be tough. And I would also say like my job has shifted so much. Right? And this is okay. Like the perception in some places is that I'm still just the brand ambassador for the Pathfinder. Like I'm just the Pathfinder guy. And the reality is like that's really a pretty small part of the job now, right? I'm not out in bars and restaurants as much. I'm not out doing those things as much. So there is pressure of like, why aren't you out? Where are you? Like, we haven't seen you forever. Like, what's going on? And you want to go out and see people. I went out last Monday. There was a bunch of things happening on a Monday night randomly. And Brooke and I were out till 2 a.m., which I can't tell you the last time that happened.
That makes me sick.
But, my brain was firing on all cylinders though. Like I had so many incredible conversations. I caught up with so many incredible people. I met new people. Like I got home and I was wired in a way where I was like, that was actually awesome. Do I want to do it all the time? No. Right. But like there was a part of me that was like, man, like let's get back to it. It's like, no. You got to be up early. You have a real day job too. So there's the balance of that. But yeah.
There's also something to that kind of like creating for others that I think we don't think about a lot. It's like when we create and immediately put it out, it like removes our own thought of it. It's like we're no longer allowed to kind of like tell ourselves what we think of this thing. We're kind of like putting all the expectation on others. And if it isn't met with like the immediate, like, wow, this is the best thing I've ever seen. Please keep doing this. Like, where's the rest of your content? Blah, blah, blah.
Mhm.
What am I even doing? It makes it that much easier to just kind of like push that thing away. It just makes you forget it almost like immediately that like, hey, I started doing this thing because like it fulfilled me in a way, or I loved it, or it was just like exciting that I can do this. Like I didn't know that I could do this little thing.
That's exactly how I felt with the Rambler page. But it started to be just this fun thing I did for myself and for some friends, and then it turned into me asking just dumb like the short anecdote on this is a brand reached out to me to do something. I said no. A couple of my friends did it, and then I reached out because I wanted to do it because they were doing it, and then I was like, I literally shut it down. I was like, I have to take it. I have to walk away because this has turned into something that I don't want it to be. And I don't want to be this person either. And so that was, yeah, exactly what you just said played out in my life for sure with that page.
Let's talk about non-alcoholic drink programs or the lack thereof. What
Yeah.
direction are they moving?
I don't know. I think there are days where I feel really great about it. And then there are days I feel like nobody cares. Right. And I think, and that obviously depends on the accounts that I go into and seeing what I see. And, I think I've talked about this previously, right? And when the 50 best list comes out or the top bars list comes out anywhere, like I'm going to look because, it's funny when I was drinking, we would travel, we would focus a lot of our time around the restaurants and the bars that were on those lists because we wanted to check them out. And then as a sober person, it's not as exciting to go to those places necessarily. And so you see those lists and look, what I would say is everyone's trying to figure it out. I think just like when vegetarian stuff rolled out, just like when vegan stuff there's always going to be people that are going to push back. There's always going to be people that tell you nobody orders that here, or nobody wants that, or not my clientele, or whatever. And that's okay. I think if the message I would get out right now is like non-alcoholic in hospitality go hand in hand. They are interwoven as much as your 75 collection on the back bar. Like it's the same process, right? And I have been that bartender, I mean, many, many years ago, but that has said, like, if you're not drinking, why are you in my bar? Like, it doesn't make sense, right? I have been that person. We can all change, right? It's okay. But this idea that it's an afterthought, oh, you see the bespoke cocktail menu, when you see the lack of cocktail menu, or you see, juice-based cocktails, it's rough, man. It's rough for me as an adult and as a professional in this industry to take that seriously. That communicates to me that you just haven't thought about it, or it's not a priority, which maybe it isn't to you, but it should be, because it's the one segment of the spirits industry that's growing. Non-alc will crest $1 billion this year. Like, that is insane. So it's happening, and it's happening all around you, and it's lost revenue for the bars and restaurants that don't have it, that don't have a real program. And I've been vocal on my page about experiences I've had in restaurants where a amuse-bouche is offered at the beginning of the meal, but nothing's non-alcoholic. So then I don't get something, but everybody else does. It becomes that weird thing where I say this all the time, right? Like, the non-alc category is not growing because sober people are drinking it. The non-alc category is growing because people are looking for alternatives to alcohol that they can integrate into their drinking behavior, not necessarily because they're going to stop drinking forever, but because they just want a choice when they're out. They want their nights to extend. They have busy days on Mondays or the next day, but they still want to have a cocktail. They don't want a juice. They don't want, I say all the time, I love Capri Suns, but this isn't soccer practice, not a child. I want an actual cocktail. And then I think the thing that I'll say on this, and I said it in another podcast too, but I think what I would really, the next level to this for me personally, is this asterisks on the menu and then the can be made non-alcoholic line. Just my perspective, right? I'm speaking on behalf of Michael Toscano, not a brand not the Pathfinder, but think about when you have to verbal or alter an order that goes back to the kitchen, how well that goes over, or how often that's executed incorrectly, or like the idea that you're putting the onus on the guest to tell you and announce at the table that they're not drinking. A lot of people are just going to order something else and not call out that they're not drinking, right? And so I think that is my next flag to bear, right? Of like, we need to stop doing that. We need to really create a section on a menu that stands on its own, that is non-alcoholic cocktails. I don't like the word mocktail, but I don't care if that's what you call it. Like, whatever you want to eat, a temperance menu. Like, I love that one. Like, whatever, I don't care. But there needs to be a separate section for those drinks to live and stand on their own. They need to follow the format of the cocktail program that you're executing. They need to match with the food that you're executing. Like, I've had people talk about, we go to this incredible restaurant and there's all these, cocktails that are layered with the menu. And then there's like a mule is like the non-alc option or something. So I think there's still a ton of room to go. I think there's so much opportunity. I've been fortunate enough to get out of New York and into some, Midwestern markets and Southern markets and see what's going on down there. And surprisingly, they're still doing it in some places better than some places in New York are doing it, truthfully. Still a lot of room to go. As long as people are open to having the conversations and understanding that at the end of the day, it's hospitality, then I think we'll get there.
What is it about some of these top bars that aren't integrating it into their program? It just seems so insane to me that some of these top bars that you look to be on the cutting edge of everything and to be so behind on this, it just seems so backward.
I'm trying to debate how much trouble I'm going to get in with what I'm going to say, but think the brands that drive these awards, you got to play in those worlds, right? And those brands are not interested in non-alcoholic cocktails. So when those brands that you have to carry on your menu to get you onto the list for 50 best aren't non-alcoholic and aren't concerned, then why would you be? I think there's some degree of that, right? I have been to these awards. I have been in this room. I have seen it firsthand. It's not for me. It's not my space. I'm grateful in the sense that being a part of a bar that was on that list propelled my career, and I'm not going to pretend like it didn't. But I think that when you know you have to make certain brands happy to get the notoriety to get where you need to go, then everything else becomes secondary. And so I think that's why you see bespoke menus. I think that's why you see, just like something thrown on there, right? So I think in those bars that are chasing those awards, sometimes the hospitality focus is on what's going to get them to the finish line, not necessarily hospitality as a whole. And I've seen that. I've seen certain people treated differently in bars and restaurants that are trying to win the award because they know that those people are going to get them there, while other people aren't treated the same. And that's the game that's played in this space. And so I think that's part of it. At the same time, there are plenty of bars on this list that are doing a great job. So I don't think it's one or the other, right? I don't think if you're on the list, you can't have a non-alc cocktail program. I just think some people are more inclined to give it the space and time it needs, and some are more concerned about where they got to go, which leads to increased business for your bar. Shit's expensive. You need butts in the seats. Like, I'm not saying all of this in a vacuum in a way that I don't understand both sides of the equation, but from this perspective, from a non-alc perspective, I guess until a non-alc brand becomes a driver to the 50 best, I don't know that, and there are some brands that are backed by some big brands that are on some of these menus, but even those cocktails are still pretty, sour build, shake, maybe some ginger beer. It's still not on the level that the drinks you're executing are on the real menu. So there's still tons of work to do, but the game is the game.
From your perspective, what does it take to start a non-alcoholic program?
I mean, funny enough, it takes a sour build with some ginger beer to start a non-alc program, right? I mean, truthfully, like, you start there. But I would tell you that's how I've thought about any drink I've ever created ever. I've said this on lots of these too. Like, I was not the most creative bartender in the world. I'm not somebody that's going to layer flavors and textures and, sous videing and agar. Like, that was just never my space. I was much more of a really well-made, balanced 3 to 5 ingredient cocktail, maybe, and executing it consistently and making you feel really good when you're at the bar. Like, that was much more my space. So in my brain, that's what these drinks can be. It doesn't have to be, I'm not saying they have to be complicated and over the top. I just want them to align with the program that you're executing so that the guest doesn't feel a difference between them. So if you're a dive bar, a freaking beer and a shot of Pathfinder is a great way to start. It doesn't need to be super complicated. And then I think you have to be open to adjusting your non-alcoholic cocktails to what the guests are asking for and then what your program is, right? I have also seen that where, like, the non-alc drinks never change. They change the menus, but the non-alc drinks, they just retread them every time. It's like, you're not doing that with your actual drinks. Why would you do that with the non-alcs, right? Like, so I think there's a commitment to executing the program on the same level you execute spirits. But to start, sour with some ginger is great. You know what I mean? It doesn't need to be complicated. Beer and a shot's my favorite way to do it right now, truthfully. Guinness Zero and a Pathfinder is perfection to me.
Yeah, that's a killer combo.
Listen, I have no insight into what's coming necessarily, right? But I have a feeling in my bones that someone's going to crack this ethanol code really soon. I have a feeling like somebody's going to figure out the weight and burn aspects, right? And we're going to get away from capsicum or capsaicin or however you say it. Like, we're going to get away from the peppering of things to replicate. I know there's a lot of hubbub right now about dealcoholization and waste and all of those things, and they're legitimate. That's about as much as I know about it, to be honest. I haven't dug into it in that way. I don't have much of an opinion because I just haven't done any research at it, but I hear it. But what I'm excited about is I'm really excited about the non-alc space integrating into a low ABV space. Really, right? Like, we as a brand, we are driving shot culture this year, which is kind of wild to think about, that a non-alc brand is like, we want to be your shot brand, but we're partnering with Madre Mezcal in a lot of our markets specifically, but replicating an M&M shot with Pathfinder and Mezcal is delicious. And we have shot skis. I'm sure you've seen them.
Mm-hmm.
They're all over my page and I do them quite often. It's we're trying to create this understanding that the ritual of drinking and being in the bars and restaurants and doing shots, which is the most ritualistic thing we do in this world, or in the F&B and spirits world, can still be enjoyed authentically with a brand like the Pathfinder, whether you're doing low ABV shots or regular shots, right? I can do a shot ski with 3 other people that are drinking and we all feel included and we all feel like we're getting this experience together. So I think there's this idea that non-alc can almost like wrap its arm around the people that aren't drinking and like bring them back into the fold in a way that feels really good, and allow everybody to be a part of this incredible experience that is life in the bars and restaurants, and feel like they're included. So I think that's what I really am excited about. But I really do hope somebody cracks the ethanol code because I would sip a non-alc whiskey if it tasted like a non-alc whiskey or like a Woodford for sure.
Man, that shot thing is so simple, but so meaningful. Like before, there were like good things that you could actually do shots of. And Pathfinder is my favorite shot to do, whether it's on its own, dropped into a Red Bull or a root beer.
Mhm.
It allows something that was totally missing from that, like, just fun, breezy bar culture. Like, before that came along, it felt like you weren't tall enough to ride the log ride at the amusement park, so you had to just stand there on the bridge and watch all of your friends, like, cascade down this waterfall, and
Mhm.
somehow, in both circumstances, you're the one that ends up getting wet and just hoping that everybody had a good time.
Yeah. It's when I've done these, so we did an event with, well, we were a part of an event with Madre here in New York recently at this pretty big, like, party bar in Brooklyn, and we had the shot ski out, and somebody was like, why? Like, why would we do this?" And I was like, "Because you're gonna do a 50/50 and I'm gonna do a shot of Pathfinder." I said, "And in the past, I would have had to do pineapple juice." And they were like, "Oh." I was like, "Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't have to do that now. I have a choice, and I can have something that actually feels like a spirit and, reminds me of my better days with Jägermeister and stuff." And it really is about just inclusivity and authentic inclusivity. I love it, man. I love
Yeah.
that we're gonna continue to push shots, and it's fun to watch people's, minds change literally from the beginning of the shot to after the shot. Like, they come off the shot a different person almost, and it's a lot of fun to be a part of that and witness it, and yeah, it's a ton of fun.
Sometimes I just wanna be a piece of crap.
Yeah, yeah,
Lately,
yeah,
I've
I
been
wanna
saying
stay.
I still drink, I just don't drink alcohol
Ooh, that's
because
good, I
of those
like
kind of, like,
that.
cultural moments. Because
Yeah,
now I'm not missing anything.
yeah, Brooke and I went to, like a honky tonk dive bar to listen to a friend of ours play the other night, and it was just like, the rickety popcorn machine at the end of the bar, and it was dark, and it was red neon, and it was just, beat up wood, and I was like, "This is exactly where I wanna drink all the time." And I could have and they had Guinness Zero, you know what I mean? It was just, like, perfect. Sat there and had some Guinness and some popcorn and just listened to this country band, and it was like, it's everything I want without all the things I don't need. It's such a and nobody knew different, it was nothing was called out, it didn't feel weird. Yeah, it's special, and I think yeah, that's a key.
Michael, what do you love about yourself?
You know what? You said something earlier in the intro about when I ask you how you're doing and you know that I'm actually listening to you and care. And so what I would say is twofold. I have a terrible memory and I forget people's names a lot. I will forget whole conversations that Brooke and I had 2 days ago. Like, it's not intentional. I don't There's a truthfully a fear unlock there of, like, I have Alzheimer's in my family, so, like, I'm like, "Oh god, am I whatever. Did I drink these brain cells away?" But what I would say is that I am more consciously aware of being present than I ever have been, right? There was somebody early on in my sobriety that I sat down with and at a bar, and we were talking, and we had talked a bunch, and she was telling me about her family, and I just said, "Listen, I really appreciate you sharing that, and just, like, want you to know that, this is the most present I've ever been in one of our conversations, and I'm really grateful for it." And I think I've been able to just continue to expand that. I feel like what I love about myself is that I do genuinely care about the people in my life, and feel like I'm as unselfish as I've ever been in my life because I want to be there for the people that I care about, and I'm able to do that more now today than I've ever been in the past, and I think it's pretty special.
It is special. Michael, thanks for coming back and thanks for showing up.
And Josh, thanks for having me, brother. This has been awesome. I needed it. This is great.